One of the most frustrating things about being a Mortal Kombat fan is that the series never runs out of good ideas. Seriously, if there's one thing Mortal Kombat has never struggled with, it's creativity. The franchise has created incredible villains, amazing realms, interesting rivalries, entire factions, and storylines that could have carried multiple games. The problem is that Mortal Kombat almost never sticks with them. Recently, they're just putting out bland stuff, and back then they put out cool ideas, they built hype around everything, and they get fans invested, but then they immediately move on to something else. Sometimes the storyline gets abandoned, sometimes it's just straight up rushed, and sometimes it gets completely forgotten. So today I want to talk about some of the biggest wasted storylines in Mortal Kombat history. Not just wasted characters period, not just wasted whole games, I'm talking about wasted storylines. The ideas that had the potential to be great, but never got the payoff that they deserved. But if you guys don't know me by now, I'm Mr. Frosty Flames, but you can call me Mike. We do anything gaming news, reviews, playthroughs, analysis, and we do it in a chill way with no over editing BS. So if you like that style of content, be sure to hit that sub button and join the Mr. Frosty Flames Legion. Anyways, let's get back to the video, and I want to start with one of the most obvious ones and one of the most recent ones, and that's the whole concept of the evil or dark Raiden. You know, the Raiden where he's dressed all emo, dressed all black, because honestly, I feel like this might be the single biggest wasted storyline in the franchise history, because look at the ending of MKX. Raiden is done playing nice. He's carrying Shinnok's severed head around like a trophy. He's threatening Earthrealm's enemies. He's crossing lines he would have never crossed before. It's something similar to like an evil Superman, but it's just Raiden, and I feel like it would be cool if it was Raiden. And fans were excited because for the first time in years, Raiden actually felt unpredictable. Usually we get like a good guy Raiden, you know, he barely shows off his true powers, but this time a really unhinged, bloodlusted Raiden could be amazing. It felt like Mortal Kombat was finally heading somewhere different. What if like Dark Raiden was the main villain of MK11, but then, you know, MK11 actually came out and Dark Raiden was basically thrown in the trash. Yeah, you know, he was there in the beginning, but then the whole timeline merging stuff really messed up the storyline. You know, it's resolved almost immediately. You had years of build up and it's just gone just like that and just replaced with Kronika. And you know, a lot of people don't like Kronika, including me. A lot of people don't like the timeline stuff, including me. So I feel like they should have just stuck with an evil Raiden maybe as the main villain, because I don't think we've had an evil Raiden as the primary antagonist, and that would be so amazing if we could just finally get a game with bad Raiden, because that would be cool. And another rivalry that should have been huge, and this is a 3D era rivalry that I always bring up constantly, and that's Havoc versus Hotaru. Basically chaos versus order. Just think about that concept. It practically writes itself. Havoc represents absolute chaos and Hotaru represents absolute order. They're two opposite ends of the spectrum. These two characters should have become one of Mortal Kombat's defining rivalries if they built it right. Instead, you know, almost nothing happens. And to be honest, it's not like the fans hated these two characters either. People loved Havoc in Mortal Kombat Deception. Everyone thought it was so cool that he could sort of like contort his body in ways that were, you know, physically not possible and break apart his limbs just for him to get the upper hand. And people thought Hotaru was cool. While he didn't really have many unique moves, he did have cool design and cool concept. People loved his samurai armor with his giant flagpole and his pike, you know, on his back. It was just cool. His concept was cool. He looked cool. He had a lot of aura, you know, but they just never do anything with it. In Liu Kang's new timeline, Order Realm and Chaos Realm are barely explored. Havoc comes back, but you know, he's barely explored, and when he does come back, we do go to the Chaos Realm in Titan Havoc's Chaos Reigns DLC, but we never really even see Hotaru anywhere. Like, where is he? The conflict never reaches its full potential, and one of the most interesting and, you know, in my opinion, probably the most interesting idea from the 3D era gets straight up left behind. And to further that, you know, why is Chaos Realm and Order Realm barely used? Like, seriously, Mortal Kombat has multiple realms. They have entire worlds with their own culture and philosophies, and yet we spend spend most of our time in either Earthrealm or Outworld, and maybe sometimes they'll sprinkle in a little bit of Netherrealm, but you know, we never go to Chaos Realm and Order Realm because they should have became major locations in the franchise, in the lore. Instead, they really just feel like they're in the background. They feel like sort of like footnotes. The potential was enormous, but the execution was really not that good. And while we're talking about the 3D era, let's talk about Onaga too, because unlike a lot of villains, Onaga actually lived up to the hype. You know, like I said in previous videos, you know, he was dangerous, he was powerful, and most importantly, he actually felt different. He wasn't just like another sorcerer, he just wasn't another like warlord, he was the Dragon King, basically the Galactus of Mortal Kombat, a villain who genuinely felt larger than life. Like, I'm more scared of this guy than maybe a Titan in this lore. And after Deception, he's just gone, you know, for nearly 2 decades. Yeah, Onaga, who is that guy? And every time fans ask for him back, it's because people recognize how much potential is still there. I say that maybe if they're going to continue on with the story from Mortal Kombat 1 to whatever's next, Mortal Kombat 13, I say they should bring back Onaga in some capacity. Make him even larger than these Titans, because, man, these Titans are just lame. They're just characters that are overpowered and blah, blah, blah. That's it. And, you know, speaking of the 3D era, I'm on a roll. Let's keep going. Taven and Dagon. Now, this one is going to make some people laugh because, yes, Taven and Dagon weren't exactly the most beloved characters, but their story had potential. Armageddon spent an entire game just building them up. You know, the prophecy, them being brothers, the coming apocalypse, the fight that would decide everything. And then the reboot happened, and then that entire storyline basically just disappeared. Even in Mortal Kombat 1 with the Armageddon Pyramid coming back, right? Maybe, I don't know why they did that, maybe for nostalgia or something, but you really don't see Taven or Dagon anywhere. And whether you like those characters or not, it's hard not to view that as a wasted opportunity. And again, while I'm talking about the 3D era, let's sprinkle in the Red Dragon too, because everybody knows the Black Dragon. Even like casual fans know the Black Dragon. They get all the attention. Characters like Kano, Cabal, Tremor, everybody knows them. But remember the Red Dragon? You know, Dagon, Mavado, even Su Hao? It's like a secret assassin organization operating behind the scenes, even more secretive than, say, the Black Dragon or something like that. This could have been one of Mortal Kombat's most dangerous factions. Instead, they really never became as important as they should have. The setup was there, but the payoff never arrived, and you just, again, after the 3D era, you just never hear from them again. And another wasted storyline, in my opinion, is a more of a unique one and a more of a hardcore Mortal Kombat fan. Now, if you ever read the MKX comics, you know exactly where I'm going with this, and I know I brought up Havik before, but I'm gonna bring him up again. In the MKX comics, Havik becomes sort of like a blood god, and it was awesome. The idea of Havik manipulating events from behind the scenes before the events of MKX was amazing. He was sort of like corrupting characters, he was creating chaos across the realms. It was one of the coolest versions of this character we've ever seen, and then nothing. There's no major payoff, there's no continuation, no follow-up. One of the most interesting versions of Havik ever created was simply just left behind. And speaking of the MKX comics, Reiko was in it too, and he deserved better too. The comics finally gave him something meaningful to do. He wasn't just that guy who was Shao Kahn's best friend or that guy that wanted to be Shao Kahn. He was different. He sort of felt important, dangerous, and relevant. For once, it seemed like Mortal Kombat was really preparing him for something bigger. But then again, you just never hear from it again. The story moved on, and years later, we're still wondering what that could have been. And finally, I can't do a wasted storyline video without this one. It's the newest entry, the newest era, Liu Kang's new timeline. Because before the multiverse took over, I was genuinely interested in this world. Like I said in my previous video, it was cool. Melina's struggles, Reptile's redemption, even the new Lin Kuei conflict, Outworld politics, the new versions of classic characters. It really felt fresh, at least for the first half. It felt exciting. It felt like Mortal Kombat was finally committing to a new direction. Then the story suddenly shifted towards timeline invasions, titans, and alternate universes, and instead of exploring this new era and, you know, diving deep into the lore of Liu Kang's timeline, the game starts focusing on countless other timelines, and that's what makes it super frustrating because the potential was right there, and Mortal Kombat just got distracted by bringing in multiverses again. And that's why I think Liu Kang's new timeline is the most wasted potential Mortal Kombat has ever done. The funny funny thing is really that Mortal Kombat doesn't have a creativity problem. I feel like it never has because, you know, although the games could feel stale, there's always something fresh, you know, some new idea, even if it's bizarre, like, oh, Scorpion is Kuai Liang or something like that. It never really had a creativity problem, but the franchise constantly comes up with, you know, mediocre or great ideas. They have really good villains, they have great factions, great rivalries, great storylines. The real problem is it just never really commits to any of it or really just goes forward to make us care about it, because Mortal Kombat has a habit of introducing incredible concepts and just abandoning them before they reach their full potential. And then when they introduce something that's trash, they commit to it like, bro, you know, we don't want this, we want the other thing, and then they just never listen. Like, for example, you know, Dark Raiden, Havoc and Hotaru, Onaga, you know, the stuff that I talk about. The list goes on and on and on. And honestly, that's what makes these storylines so frustrating, not because they were bad, but because they could have been great. Even in my wasted characters video, it's like, you know, they have a lot of cool character concepts, but they just never fully commit to them. Like a Su Hao, for once, you know, he's one of the worst characters, worst designed characters in the game, but I feel like he's one redesign, one concept design away from just becoming one of the greats. Same thing with any other character, Kira, Cobra. I mean, just change their backstory and give them a proper moveset and maybe change their design a little bit and they'll be good. But in the end, that's just my take on it. Let me know what you guys think down below. What is the most wasted potential storyline in Mortal Kombat history in your opinion? For me, like I said before, I think it's Liu Kang's new timeline in Mortal Kombat 1, because they had the blueprint, they had everything they needed to start fresh and give the fans what they want, but they just somehow fumbled it so hard. But yeah, let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. I want to hear what your thoughts are. If you like this video, make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe to join the Mr. Frosty Flames Legion. Thank you guys for watching. Mr. Frosty Flames out. Ciao.